Hello and welcome to the first episode of TheClimb, the podcast in which we recap CVS's The Summit. I am Florian and I'm joined by my co-host, Kinley.
Hello. And we're just the couple that thinks that we, from sitting on the couch, can accomplish the summit faster and better than the people that are out there.
Exactly. No qualifications at all, but we feel like we're very qualified. Yeah, I mean, we're just going to go through the first episode of The Summit that aired about a week ago, chronologically, go through the characters as they are presented to us, and yeah, talk about the whole concept and the show in general. So, with that, let's jump right in. First off, we get this cool sequence with amazing nature shots and a voiceover from our host, Manu Bennett. Manu Bennett is from New Zealand, but he grew up in Australia. Grew up in Australia and grew up in Australia. He's an actor and he's known for his roles in, for example, The Hobbit or other ones that I can't think of right now, but I'm sure you can look them up. So we get this sequence with voiceover from him introducing the show. Yeah, I mean, what did you think about the first couple frames, the nature we're
They
represented
like
with?
call okay, great drone shots, I will say. It was an amazing intro. They called it a mystical island. And then raw nature, land of the long white cloud. Although I will say Manu's a little too serious. I know he was like trying to portray this like very serious intro kind of voice, but it just lighten up a little bit. We're out in nature. We're going on a little hike. Like let's like calm it down a little bit.
Well, yeah, but you know that they're gonna be like that for like if you think about Jeff, sexy Saint Jeff, um, Jeff Probst from Survivor. Like he used to be serious. Now he has really like he's become really mellow, super nice guy. But he used to be super serious, and you know they kind of have to go for that to like set the scene because you know the whole cast is just gonna be goofing
But
around.
that serious,
Like you
I
kind
don't
of see it.
know.
Like 80% of the cast. Yeah, I mean,
True.
I hear your point, but I feel like he kind of has to go for it. Yeah, we get some more nature shots, and we also get our first mention of the mountain's keeper, which I found a little cringe, but I think we're going to talk about a little more about that a little later
The
on.
helicopter, yeah, I don't like how they're like the eyes, they're watching you. And they have like the helicopter like almost hitting the people. Like I know it's just the shot, but like I
I know
don't
they
know.
try to
I
go
didn't
for
really like the backdrop, like it almost hitting people. I'm like, okay,
yeah, I know they
let's
try to
roll
go
with my
for like
but
really epic and yeah, but yeah, a little too much, maybe. We also get the first mention of our 16 contestants, and we get a first like a little confessional interview by Jeff, a 28-year-old neuroscientist. He looks in shape, so that's great. We can't say that about all our cast members. Throwing a little shade here, but we'll talk about them later on. And we get Becky Lee in her first confessional. She's 27 years old and a construction manager, and she describes herself as competitive. I wrote that down. Do you have any thoughts about them in the first little interview, the first little sequence we see from them?
I will say overall the participant, it's a very diverse group of people. I'm very happy with the participants that they chose. Because you have like it's not the show wouldn't be as good if you only had all these athletic competitive backgrounds like trying to climb the summit versus or just like oh here's all of these Americans that have never been on a hike in their entire life, or some of them it sounds like they've never stepped foot outside, which is just how I don't know. But yeah, I will say Jeff and Beckley, they really did stand out to me as being people who like physically would be able to make it to the top of the summit in time. But it just comes back to like this game is not just like making it to the summit, it's also the strategic side, which I think is really going to be interesting and come into play in like how the season goes.
Absolutely. I think it was a little interesting, like a little foreshadowing, maybe, but we haven't even entered the first real scene of the episode yet, which was Manu as a host standing in like a valley surrounded by beautiful New Zealand mountains, basically. It looked very pretty. And they're standing in this little grass valley. So we get this scene with Manu talking to the group who are standing there in like a little circle, basically. And what I thought was really funny was we get the little like after his voiceover going into the group meeting him for the first time, or to us meeting him for the first time, we get the little reach to what in the background. I thought it was really funny when they were talking about like reaching the summit. I think I'm not really sure who it
Yeah.
was, but I thought it was really funny. That definitely sets the scene. Yeah, what did you think about Manu talking to the group for the first time?
I mean, it comes back to him being really serious, but I guess that's part of like the summit being like something that's like scary and outdoorsy, I guess. And so I guess it comes with it, but I will say like when he was talking to Amy, I guess she was tearing up like from just like emotions overwhelmed, like being out and seeing like the nature around them. And so I guess she had tears in her eyes, and he was like, the way he just said like, what did he say? Like, why do you have a tear in your eye? Or you have a
There's like
tear
you
in
have
your
tears
eye. He
running
didn't
down
say
your
like,
face or something.
yeah, yeah. You have a tear. You have a tear in your eye. It's so serious. Like no sympathy at all. Um, I don't know. I kind of laughed at that a little bit. And then like I was
How are
trying
people
to like
crying
really
already?
not.
You know I can't handle my crying people. Like,
I
why you're
know.
there? Like
Yeah, that's
you
what I thought
literally
of when I
you
saw it. Yeah.
traveled to the U.S. Like you traveled from the U.S. to New Zealand. Okay, it's a long trip. I get it. And then you probably were there for like 2 days before they started shooting. Maybe I don't know. Like depends. But nothing has happened yet. Like, how are you crying already? Like, I'm sorry, but don't understand. And yeah, Amy that
Yeah.
you mentioned, she's our 46-year-old bank manager that's crying already.
Yeah, I don't know. And then I what do you think about them having to carry their money?
Well, I mean, I guess it makes it a little more, but a little more real for like people watching it, maybe, and like taking the money from someone, and you see them like we're foreshadowing here to the end of the episode, but you see him like taking it from other people and like a handover. You know what I mean? So, what did you think?
Mhm. I thought it was interesting. I just thought it was funny when he just like throws the bag down and it was like, "What's in there?"
Yeah. Oh, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. For the first episode, yeah, I wrote
Like
that
it
down too.
just
The first
like I the concept of like carrying the money, I'm like, "Oh, that's like cool." Like you said, like I think it like keeps like it's like another motivation, like but it just cracked me up when he threw the bag on the ground and like made Amy walk up like after she had tears in her eyes like, "What's in there?"
she like I literally wrote down Manu gives him back with 1 million. And then she like he makes her walk up like you said, and she walks up and she opens it and she's like and like makes this face and starts crying even more. I'm like, what is happening? What are we doing?
Yeah.
All right. Manu, in giving the group the money, he also tells us a little more about the concept of the show. So basically, each of the participants is going to be carrying an equal share of $1 million up the mountain. So they basically have it split up in that big bag. They have like little vacuum sealed, um, like shares basically of the 1 million that each of them is going to carry in their backpack. Um, the prize in the end will be shared, like the money that's left in the end will be shared between the people that make it to the summit. And if you quit, for example, your share of the money is going to be gone. So the other participants are not going to get that money in the end. Also, one of the rules is the whole group must travel together. So it's not like the top five fittest people can just rush up the mountain in 5 days, but the whole group has to be staying together, which would provide like be pretty interesting even in the first episode alone. Do you have any thoughts on the concept of the show? Any of that?
I'm interested to see how this like plays out. I think the first episode there was a lot going on.
I am too. I want to. talk about one little thing first, but then we're also going to jump into the route a little bit, which is also pretty interesting, I think. But first, I want to talk about Manu hands over the map, and basically, who grabs the map? What's his name again? Aaron, I think. Theron grabs the
Uh,
map.
yeah, Theron.
Yeah. He goes and grabs the
Yeah.
map and he's super excited. And he's like, he goes up there, he's like, I got you all. And then the first, when Manu's done talking and they head out, the first thing we hear is Theron saying, who knows how to read a map? I thought it was a funny shot. And we're going to talk about that a little bit too.
I thought it was yeah, I
Um,
thought that was funny because it was like a stark difference from Manu like talking and being serious, and then he's like, "I got the like it was just really funny. Like his personality was funny.
yeah, for sure. Then we got this little voiceover sequence again where Manu tells us a little more about the route. So what we get to know about the route is it's going to be a little over 100 miles. Um, so I'm assuming it's not going to be much over 100 miles. Otherwise, they would have said
Hmm.
like 120 miles or something. So I assume it's barely like a little bit, probably over 100 miles. They start in the valley, and to the first checkpoint, Manu mentions it's going to be 2,000 feet of incline to the first checkpoint, which is really not a lot. But maybe you can say something about that in a second too.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm like, we could do that like easily.
Yeah. Like they did
Put
not,
put me on the
like from
show.
how it looked, literally put us on a show. From what it looked like, they did not start the latest around midday, I would say. So they had like a
Yeah, they didn't have a full day. Yeah.
good 8 hours, but they had like 8 hours ish or whatever, like around that. I think later we hear that they've been hiking for like 6 hours at some point. So
Hmm.
I think it's not that big of a challenge, at least to the first checkpoint.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a day hike for us.
So yeah, we get a little bit of insights into the whole route too. So basically, they're going to be walking up this ridge to the first checkpoint, and then continuing on the ridge for uh, for a little bit. Then they will drop down back down in the valley to the left and cross back over the ridge line. Then there's going to be a river crossing, and they will move up to higher altitude. After that, there is some alpine lake crossing between checkpoints 6 and 7, and we also have a glacier traverse after that. And then the last part of the summit is going to be up this ridge in the snow to the mountaintop. And we have 9 checkpoints in total. So that's as much as we know, basically. And they have 14 days.
And
They
then
have,
they have
oh,
to
I should have
vote
mentioned that
somebody.
earlier. Oh, we'll talk about that in But 14 days for that trip does not sound that bad.
No, that's what I'm saying. And I guess it comes back to the concept that they have to like wait. They have to travel as a group. Because obviously the show wouldn't be as interesting if it was like, okay, well, now you have these two groups separated or three groups of like different experiences and like being able to make it. And so I like the idea that they have to wait for everyone because then that also means that then
Yeah.
you're having it becomes more of like a strategic like element that they have to like think about when they're like trying when they have to vote somebody out. So like that's the thing too is that I there's 9 checkpoints. So that means that at each checkpoint they have to vote somebody out as well. And then I guess like it from the looks of it, yeah, and then from the looks of it, it looks like there's other places within the trail or the path between the checkpoints where you can just like decide that somebody's not coming along with you. I guess that's like part of like the keepers, mountain keepers decision making. They have to make really hard decisions.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. And like you said, I think obviously the whole like social aspect of this challenge lives off of them having to stay together. Because otherwise, there would be no chance for the people in the back and the older people. Um, like we already see the group like splitting up into two camps basically, um, just within the first couple miles.
Imagine hiking with these people for
My God.
Imagine, like, what do you
I
like,
can.
imagine hiking with these people for 14 days, which given by the 14th day, like, you're not gonna have everyone. But who do you think that you would gravitate towards? Because, like, obviously, when we're hiking, like, you're, like, talking, like, a lot of the time, and it's, like, random conversations come up. And so I just
Yeah.
wonder what they're talking about. Like, I know, like, the mom gang kind of they seem to, like all the moms seem to, like, come together and, like, mom talked, and I think they're out there to, like, avenge their mom experience. But who do you think you would gravitate towards?
Um, just of up what like off of what we've seen up to this point in the show where they just start walking, I think it would be Jeff for sure. He seems very like empathetic, but also fit at the same time. I think he seems very smart and he chooses his words pretty carefully. I think it would be interesting to talk to. Um, we haven't seen much about like most of the cast members up to this point, but what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Or, like, Beckley because, like, it's the same thing, like, she just seems like she wants to get this done, and then, like, later we see, like, her, like, confessional of being, like she was a Cinderella, or princess, and then now she does, like, construction management, and it looks like she's been, like, some of the pictures, it looks like she's been to some really cool places and, like, has a
She's been
lot of, like,
hiking.
hiking
She
experience. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know, so, like, I have no doubt that she can make it, like, I have no doubt. I This is where that, like,
yeah.
strategic part comes in, so I think that's gonna be, like, really interesting. But then, Theron and, how do you say her name? Shweta?
Shweta. I think it's
Shweta?
Shweta.
I am so sorry
We're
for
gonna butcher some
mispronouncing
names
that.
here. Everybody, we're very
Yeah, I'm
sorry. We're
really
gonna
bad
butcher
at
some names here.
names.
Yeah.
I will admit I'm really bad at names. They immediately pair up, like, during this, like, first little walk through the meadow before, like, ascending that first, like, climb. They, like, immediately pair up, and I don't know, I don't gravitate towards them. I don't know if it's their energy they, like, put off, but they're a little much for me.
Absolutely. I 100% agree, but they definitely get the villain edit, for sure, throughout the whole episode too, but we're gonna be talking about that a little more, later. But they are saying some things that, like, make them a villain for sure. Like, we meet Dennis, as you said, he's a 29-year-old trauma nurse, and then, Sweta is a 28-year-old corporate strategist, and we definitely get like from Dennis, we hear his strategy is to win people over, but then also stab him in the back and lie and do all these things. So we definitely get the villain edit there. And from Sweta, we get the whole "I'm smart, I run circles around people." Like those are the first things like that we hear from her. So we definitely get a little bit of a villain edit there.
I know, I was trying not to, like, play into it.
Yeah, I know,
I
but it's
try
hard.
not to,
Like
like, I, like, was, like, thinking about it, I was, like, trying not to be like, "Okay, this is, like, what the producers are trying to, like, gear you towards," but honestly, I don't know if it was, like, them 2 separately, I was, like, fine, but them 2 together, I just feel like I think they're gonna be the 2 people that create the most drama and stir the pot the most.
absolutely, 100% agree. But they also love that. Um, they love that kind of like little mischievous and stuff. Yeah, we meet the moms. Amy again. She's not crying anymore, but she's one of the moms. She's bonding with all of the other moms. I think G- Jenny, she's another mom. And we also meet Theron for the first time after he's been handed the map. He's a 29-year-old waiter, and he also gets a little bit of a mean edit. Like he's very sociable, I feel like. He's a good talker and all of that, but he also has a little bit of a mean edit. What do you think? Like I think there's definitely some edge to him.
Yeah, I mean, this comes back to, like, yeah, he definitely gets that. I don't know, I just didn't like his energy that much. I'm sure he's a really nice person and everything, but just, like, so far it's been, like, a little much, and then we see it later, like, when they're climbing the mountain, he's just, like, very, like, I get it, like, we gotta, like, motivate people to, like, keep going and that, like, they are on, like, this, like, time frame and the schedule, but he's, like, not understanding at all of anyone. Like, anyone that's struggling, he's just, like, kinda like, "Well, why are you on here?" And I think that's dangerous for his strategic game.
Yeah, for sure. His social game for sure too. We hit the swamps, and I thought it was really funny. We got the like about the socks and the shoes getting wet. We got Robert. He's a camp counselor. We get the line, "Your feet are your wheels. Don't get a flat tire." Like very teacher education field vibes. But he's a very
Robert
nice guy, but he's
yeah.
already getting on people's nerves.
I know, I think he's in the perfect profession. Like, they were giving his, like, background and everything, and I was like, "Wow, he's really the fit for that job." And which is amazing. He does amazing work, but yeah, that cracked me up, your feet are your wheels and don't hit a flat tire. And, like, everybody like, this shot of everybody, like, wringing out their socks, and
Yeah,
he's still like you said, he has, like, the camp counselor, which I guess he was a camp counselor at one point, like, the vibe, and I think that that's gonna, like, get to some people. It already was.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I think it's really gonna get on people's nerves, like, the further in that you get. Like, the first day, like, okay, you can deal with it, but again, it's like you're hiking with these people for and being surrounded around these people, like, 24/7 for that long, it's gonna cause some riffraff.
yeah. Absolutely. Like people don't like being told what to do, like or like feeling like they're back in school with a teacher telling them what to do. Like people just don't like that. Like you see it on Survivor all the time. Um but yeah, we finally hit the climb, the actual like start point of the challenge, I would say. And we get introduced to Dusty, a 28-year-old real estate agent, who doesn't really like the pace the group has at that point. And the group is kind of splitting into two packs already. The one group that's like, pick up the pace, guys. We got to make it to the checkpoint. And then the let's take our time, slow and steady group. What did you think about Dusty and just the group dynamics at that point?
I think he's another person that's, like, athletic and wants to get to the top and understands that there's, like, a timeline, but then, I mean, we do see him actually ending up in that 2nd pack, and he was really there, like, carrying bags, like, he was helping people. I saw him, like, helping Rose, like, up the hill, like, our certain sections. So I think he was really trying to help and maybe not be, like, at the front, like, just yelling at people to pick it up. Like, he really was trying to, like, physically be there and help people be faster. Whether it's gonna make a difference in the end or not, I'm not really
Yeah, I saw that too, and I he seems very smart, and he knows like he strategically places himself at the back, helping the slower people, even though he could be at the front, running away from the whole pack. But I think it's gonna be good for his long term social gain, but we'll see about that. Um, one thing I also it's funny we got the like I don't like they didn't really show who said it, but we got the whole I picked a hell of a time to go for camping for the first time line. Like I was like, what? What are you talking? Like for the you're out here for the first time right now?
yeah. Yeah, they have that shot where it's, like, all these different lines. Yeah, all the different lines, and then we have Bo saying, "Feel the burn," and it cracked me up because 'cause I'm like, "This is day 1."
Yeah, and
But then
like,
it
did you
made me
not do like
realize,
you
like,
know you
how many people have not like, it made me realize, like, how many people have not been on a hike, like, a serious hike, and it just amazes me, like, all these people are at least in their late 20s or older. I'm like, "How have you
yeah.
not go outside, like, experience, like, Mother Nature," like, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is, like, crazy," and I'm like,
Then, like, what are you doing? You sign up for this outdoor show that's called The Summit, so, like, even if you don't know anything about it, which I don't assume is the case, like, you definitely know what you're signing up for. Like, how are you you're not prepared at all? Like, I don't understand. Like, you came there and you're like, "Oh, I wanna win the money, but I'm not prepared at all." What? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but when they're casting the people, they don't want them to all, like, be prepared, though.
That is true. I guess it would be pretty boring
You
if
know what I
everybody
mean?
was
Then it
super in
wouldn't be a
shape and
good
stuff.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I get that. We get Theron leading him through like literally bushes, and we see him like going uphill through like literally like bushes thick as I don't even know. Like like this is definitely not the trail they're supposed to be on, or like the way they're supposed to be going. And this is the first time we hear from Tony, a 30-year-old media director. And this is also where you got Theron turning around, being like, guys, come here. I have to tell you something. And he's like, we're here. I thought we were here, but we're completely off track.
That
And
was really funny to me. Honestly, I don't know if I was, like, expecting there to be a trail, but I kinda like that there's not a trail. Like, I'm enjoying that.
yeah, but so they end up going back down. They end up having to turn around. And we get another Rob teacher, camp counselor line. He's like, keep your feet sideways going down. Um, Another funny line, but it just shows that Rob is also not very like he doesn't know that he's pissing off people with what he's saying, I think.
Yeah.
Or we continue getting Tony's background story. He has not climbed a mountain before, which again, I don't really know why you would sign up for the show or why they would cast you if you don't have any experience, but I get it, I guess. He he describes himself as a fat kid. He used to be 400 pounds plus, and when his son was born, he decided to lose a whole bunch of weight, run a marathon, and he got down to 260 pounds, which again is super inspirational. But yeah, we would be seeing a little more of Tony in a second. But first, we get Manu again with a voiceover who says they're really behind pace and they're 5 hours in at that point. And we get Dennis and Jenny at the front, trying to keep the pack going. But Tony slips and falls and doesn't look too good anymore, honestly. He's trying to hide it, but he does not look too good at that point. Tony is really struggling. And at one point, I think Jeannie is with him. She's another one of the moms. And they're walking together, and he's like, oh, I'm dizzy. And he falls down and he actually completely passes out. And we get our first um, I guess, medical intervention scene of the season. Hopefully the last, but we'll see. And Tony's basically completely passed out on the floor, on the ground. What did you think about that?
That was, like, scary. I wasn't expecting that, like, on the first day. And I knew when they were, like, telling his whole story, like, they were giving Tony a lot of, like, introduction time. Because before the introduction, like, his background story, you could kinda tell that he was struggling a little bit, and so then when they started giving the intro, I kinda was like, "Oh, no, this is not good." Like, he's either not gonna make it past this, like, first vote out, or or he's gonna, like, drop. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what happens, like, yeah, completely passes out, and they have to bring in the helicopter, and, like, he really did not want to leave, like, he really wanted to stay, and, like, that really sucks because it is, like, he has had this, journey through, like, this weight loss journey, which is amazing, and, like, you would think that, like, he would be able to climb this mountain. He's been working out, but, I mean, it's a journey. It's not, like, a start and end with weight loss, and so and gaining back your health, and so there's still those lingering effects that can still be there. And so, but I do feel bad, but and they lose that share of the money too. But I do think it was interesting that there were some people that were like, "Let's go, we gotta go, let's leave," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like
No,
calm down like
I
a little
wrote
bit."
down the lines here. I wrote down the lines, especially from Shweta. We get the lines. What if it's just his glucose levels, just his body? This is so mental, right? Like I don't even understand what she was saying there, but a little weird. And Jeannie just gives her a side eye. And then later on, we get the lines. Maybe he's he's taking a little break, needs a little water, granola bar. Like I'm like he's literally like passed out on the floor, like having a heart attack. Like that's what it looked like. Like I'm not a medical professional, but something along those lines. And then she drops. I don't even know how I feel. And Theron and Jenny are just looking at her. What are you talking about? Like, is she definitely gets the villain edit? But does she want to be a villain? Does she know she's a villain? What do you think?
I think from her introduction that she actually that's just the villain personality just fits her, whether she
Yeah,
knows it or not.
yeah, I think that's true. Um, and later on, like when he got medevaced or is about to be medevaced, we also get the line from Shweta. I'm not trying to think about this. We just got to get there. So that just shows you that she didn't really care about Tony, but just about like making the money basically. But at the same time, Jeff, one of our favorites, early favorites so far, we got a nice like confessional interview from him where he seems like super empathetic and he's like it was super emotional to see somebody's dream like being ripped from Tony in this case. So he seems like he's very emotionally like he has a high emotional intelligence, I think.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, with that, we're down. Like you said, we're down to 937 and five. $937,500. Yeah. So again, we get the whole like once they start moving again, we get the whole dynamic between the front pack and the back of the pack again. We have Amy and Patty at the back. We got Theron in the front, who gets annoyed at Bo. And Bo is our 52-year-old basketball coach, and we got a couple basketball coach lines later on. But yeah, he's really struggling, but he's keeping up a positive attitude. How do you like Bo?
Bo from Gun Barrel City, Texas. I did not know that was
Yeehaw.
a place. Gun Barrel City. Yeah, it's a classic high school basketball coach. He really fits the role. Um, we'll see. I mean, the morale is like he brings up the morale, but it's also like pulls down like the physical side of the overall group. So we'll see how that like strategically plays. I think that's what's going to be interesting about this, that it's not always going to be like the least athletic person being voted out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Would be interesting. We get a Manu voiceover again, where he tells us as the viewers basically that if they don't reach the first checkpoint or checkpoints in general from day to day, they will have to make like basically build a makeshift bivy camp and camp wherever they are on the trail. We see Dusty helping people in the back of the pack again, which we were talking about before. We think it's a pretty smart move. And we see Manu waiting for them on the top of the ridge. As they reach him, he tells them they're late and they missed their checkpoint and they would have to sleep here on the trail. Yeah, I mean, is there anything to talk about from like them building the bivy camp? Do you have anything there?
No, I mean they had to sleep outside. They didn't make the checkpoint. That's really all it is. And then but it was interesting. It looked like it was like the first time that any of them opened their bags to even know what they had.
Yeah,
They're like, "Oh."
for sure.
Like they're like pulling it out like they're like, "Oh, look at this." And it looks like, I don't know, from what I'm inferring, that North Face is sponsoring them because
Absolutely.
they're
Yeah.
all wearing, yeah, they're all wearing North Face, which is really cool. Shout out North Face. I would love to be sponsored by you. But I think
Yeah.
what's, yeah, so they
Sponsor the
have like
show.
their little camp, please. Um, but yeah, they have their little bivy camp set up, and then like the only thing that I had from that was that cracked me up was Bo getting out of the bivy camp in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he
Yeah, I have that
he
too.
couldn't get out, and I guess he got to his knees, but then he was like, I couldn't actually get he couldn't get up, so he like tried to cover it up that he was like fall like he like
Yeah.
fell back down. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
I had
that
that
was
too.
funny.
That was funny. Um, yeah. With them starting to move again on their way up to summit, Shweta is taking over the map, and Theron seems pretty happy about that. And I think it's a smart move for him to give up the map because if he screws up again, he's definitely gonna have a target on his back. We got a funny grab low, grab green line, I thought, when they were going up the mountains, holding on to some grass there. And yeah, we get Theron and Shweta basically heading out, leading the pack, and they will. We got this dynamic where they will wait at certain points for the back of the group. The back of the group catches up to them, but then as soon as they're there stopping, they will start moving again. And the back of the group doesn't really obviously doesn't really like that either because they don't get a break at all in that scenario. And we had this whole um, segment where Rose is basically in a little discussion with Shweta and Theron about that, which would become very important later on as well.
Yeah, they tend to bicker a lot between Rose and Theron and Sweta. But this comes back to like the villain thing and Theon and Rose, Theon and Sweta being at the front, and it's like Sweta's getting the map. I think it's funny because at the beginning they were like, "Oh, we don't want to make it obvious that we're working together," but they are making it so obvious that they are working together.
Yeah.
And I think that's gonna come back to them, and he shouldn't Theon shouldn't have gave Sweater the map, like, he shoulda gave it to somebody completely different. And then they're at the front together the whole time, and I'm like, "Okay, you're making it very obvious that you're working together." But yeah, there's a lot of bickering, and then it's like, okay, I get it, they're trying to keep everybody moving, but if you're not giving the people in the back, like, a proper break, how do you expect to keep moving faster?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think I don't. They don't. Theron seems nice-ish, I would say, but Shweta just doesn't seem like a nice person. I'm not gonna lie. Um,
Yeah.
she, but I think that's what she's going for too. So I don't think I'm offending her with that statement. We get Dusty carrying Bo's bag at one point, which is not sustainable, that's for sure, especially as they keep climbing higher. We get the whole segment of Theron being afraid of heights, and then we get to the river crossing, where basically, to set the scene, we have they come over the ridge down into the valley ish, like halfway down, and then there's a river down in the valley. We got this little cliff on both sides and a river in the middle, and we have ropes set up for them to cross over, basically. But they will have to go two at a time, holding each other by the hands or shoulders. We see a lot of different strategies. We can talk about that too. And how it works, basically, they see a little sign and they will have to assign a leader, and the leader picks a partner to go over the river crossing with as a first group, and then the leader will pick the next groups as like the next pairs of two, basically, and keep going. Obviously, we have an uneven number, and right away I was thinking of Bo. What were you thinking up to that point?
I thought it was interesting. The leader, picking a leader was like you would think that I think it just adds like another layer and dimension to the game versus like, oh, okay, everybody pair up and then it just happens to be like somebody's like on the outs. But I mean, as we see, so I guess eventually they picked Beckley because Rose the
Is her
one
name
that
Beckley or Becky?
suggested Bo?
Sorry,
Becky? Oh, sorry. I think it's is it Becky? I think her
I
name
thought
is
it was Becky.
Beckley, but she
No,
goes
her
by
name is Becky
Becky?
Lee. I think her name is Becky
Becky
Lee, and she goes
Lee.
by Becky. Yeah.
Oh, I'm really bad at names. Here we go.
I'm pretty
So
sure.
they
I'm
picked
not positive,
Becky.
but I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
You're probably right. Anyways, I'm
We're
not
gonna get
meant
flamed on
to
here for
be
that.
a See, I'm not the camp counselor teacher, so obviously I don't see names every day.
Not a Rob.
And
Yeah.
I'm not a Rob. Um Yes, we see Rose suggest Bo being the leader, and there was like nobody wanted that, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And then and I don't know if this comes back to like maybe Rose butted heads with more people than what we saw. Because we saw like
Mhm.
Theron and Rose like bickering, and then they bicker even more during like this like discussion on who's going to be the leader. And when that happened, I was like, "Oh, there's some discourse here that we're not you don't get to see everything. Like when you're on a hike, like that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot that happens. We don't see everything. And so eventually they do pick Becky, which I think it was like good for her to just step up and be a leader. But I don't know if she stepped up in the right way because eventually she picks Rose, and once they make it across, which they fall, they're kind of like I feel like the demonstrators of how to get across. They kind of like figured out like you need to like have a rhythm to get across because they do fall the first time, and they make the
Yeah,
shot
but we
really
also
scary
see that
looking.
the leaning back strategy works better for them as opposed to the leaning in and like on
Yeah,
each other's shoulders, like hands on
and
shoulders. Like the hands in hand and leaning back a little bit works better for them, I feel like.
yeah, and then it seemed like people this comes back to, like, the discourse of Rose, people not liking Rose. Once they get over there, they were really upset that there was, like that Rose was even having a decision on who should come over next. Because then the leader, being Becky, had to pick the next pair of people to cross over. And, like, I thought it was interesting that they were like, "Why are they having a discussion? Like, why is Rose, like, influencing what Becky does?" Like, Becky's the leader, and so but I think anybody that would have been the leader and got over to the other side first, whoever was their pair would have done the same thing. Like, they would have had a discussion, I feel like. And so I don't know if it
Yeah.
was because Rose was over there that there was already discourse before that people were, like, even more upset. But I think it played out like you said, you're like, "Okay, yes, like, I think Bo is gonna be the one left." I was thinking that too. And I think that's why people didn't want him to be the leader.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like you said, I think the discussion, like it's obvious that Becky and Rose are going to talk about it because it also takes like a target off of Becky because she can be like, "Hey, like it was a group discussion or like we made this like later as more people come over." And at the end when there's three people left and we see who are Nick, Rob, and Bo were the last three people left on the other side, and everybody had crossed already. So obviously, it was a big decision. And we saw Becky basically go up to the group, and they had like a whole group discussion on who to, like, what two people to get over and who to leave over there. And that just takes a huge target off of Becky. I thought a very smart move, very well played from Becky.
Yeah, for sure. I think she played that out very well.
Yeah. So just to sum the thing up, we see Becky and Rose crossing. After we see Becky choosing Pumpkin and Jenny to cross, then Rose wants Bo and Amy, but in the end, Pumpkin and Jenny cross. Then we see Jeff and Dusty, we see Amy and Patty, and we see Amy struggling, and she basically ends up diving at Patty. Like it was a crazy scene. I thought like she fell forward over her like crazy, but looked very intense for sure. Then we see Dennis and Theron crossing, Shweta and Jeannie, and then Nick and Rob after the group talks it over. And then, with Bo being left alone on the other side, we see a helicopter, the Mountains Keeper, for the first time in action. And we see the helicopter fly over, and we see a yellow duffel bag being dropped out of the helicopter. And we see Jeff sprinting up to that, and basically the whole group following, and they take back the whole like the bag to open it with the whole group at the same time. What did you have any thoughts on how this second challenge or like twist or whatever you want to call it is presented to the group?
Well, I guess that's like you said, that was the first time we saw the Mountain Keeper, and I guess it's like their way of dropping like, "Oh, here's this decision." Because if they just had like a sign or something that had like that on it on the other side, then it gives whoever the leader, whoever's already made it across, like more time to like think about like who to leave on the other side. And so like I did like that it was like, okay, they didn't get to make this decision until everybody except for that one person was across.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think like obviously you can't put it there, But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I guess you gotta what would it what like, obviously, Tony was medevac. What would they have done? Like, would everybody just have crossed if Tony wasn't gone already and the numbers were even? What do you think?
I think so,
Oh, it would just
because
have been like a not a
this is before the first checkpoint,
that is
and
true.
so I think everybody would have made it across, and it would have been fine. I think that's like this whole Mountains Keeper is really just the producers being able to still have, like, somewhat of, like, if something happens like this, like, "Okay, how do we keep the game going? Like, what do we do?" I
Spice it up a little.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, and I think the whole helicopter, like, dropping a bag and all that stuff, like, adds this, like, dramatic effect. I don't hate it, but I need to see more of it because the other shots I've seen is it, like, the helicopter, like, almost hitting somebody on the side of a cliff, and I don't I don't know. But we'll see. So, yeah, so I guess, like, they open the bag and they have to make this decision. They can either leave Bo on the other side. They also lose his money. And it's like this decision of like, do
Yeah,
they
so it's a
leave Bo on
no-brainer.
the other side because he's not athletic. He's already we've already seen that he's slowing them down. Or and
Yeah.
they lose the money though, like they're not able to split that. Or they can bring him over and have his so they bring over his money as well, which comes back to, like, I guess, with them carrying the money. This is, like, a prime example. It kinda, like, makes it, I guess, real. It's like, okay, that money is with that person, like, you're bringing over the person and their money. Um
Yeah, that's true.
but they also, like, have to, like, think about so then they have this whole group discussion, like, do we leave him like, everybody's, like, kinda, like, bickering back and forth, like, yes, I think they all agree that Bo is, like, slowing them down, but then you also have the other people that are like, "Okay, well, we can bring over his money, we don't wanna lose his money," and then also, I think the morale. If he wasn't such, like, a morale booster, I think they would have left him, but I
Yeah,
think everybody really likes
it's true.
Bo's personality. And
Coach,
so
the
yeah, I
basketball
get so they
coach.
gave I know, right? And so um yeah, so I guess we see that like they all what do you think about how they voted, I guess? Their decision.
Well, like, we see Theron being very on the side of, "We leave Bo here, we don't have time for this." Like, he's slowing down the group anyways, but the rest of the group is basically like, "Hey, I'm not gonna say Bo has to leave, put a target on my back." And, like, basically the rest of the group, everyone except Theron votes for keeping Bo and his money. So I thought a little bit of a stupid move from Theron because he really took a stance to say we have to leave Bo here. I was like, okay, I think it's a little too early for that, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think they made the right decision. So they end up deciding to bring Bo over. And I think it's so funny because like you get the shots like the whole time that they're discussing Bo is like yelling across the river gorge like, "Hey,
It's like, hey,
I'm still over
yeah,
here." Yeah, like what are
come
you
get
guys
me.
up to? Like
The
so
poor guy.
I
He
thought
seems
that
like
that
such
was
a
like a
nice guy.
funny like shot. So I'm really happy that they like brought him over. Like at least it doesn't crush his dreams on the first or the second day. But so they end up bringing him over and continuing on.
Yeah. So they continue on. Bo continues to struggle. Jeannie is thriving. She's our 56-year-old Trader Joe's employee who is running circles around her younger coworkers. I thought it was very funny, her little background story. But she seems pretty cool. And they finally reached their first checkpoint. They, like you said
Yay!
before, they're definitely sponsored by North Face. The tents are huge. Like the North Face, the stereotypical yellow North Face tents that have
Yellow.
the huge North Face on there. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's basically set up in a way where we see 3 or 4 huge tents, set up. We see, like, we got the little campground vibe, we have a fireplace, we have all this food and water and drinks, and I think Jeff also mentions, wine and stuff lined up, so it seems pretty cool. But
Keeping it
we are
fancy.
yeah, they definitely are. Glamping at its finest.
Glamping.
Um, but we get our big twist for the show, I guess, here. where Manu tells us they're first of all, he tells us they're not moving fast enough. Obviously, it took them like 2 days basically to reach the first checkpoint, so that's not fast enough. Um, and basically, he tells us that once they reach a checkpoint, the checkpoint comes at a cost. So basically, they have to steal, or they get the opportunity, depending on what side you're on, to steal somebody's cash and vote them out, or by voting them out, steal their cash. So how this works is everybody will have to vote basically, and we can talk about the format of the voting in a little bit because I thought that was super weird. But so basically, they by a majority vote somebody out. That person's gone, and they have to leave their money. So the money that they leave is being equally split up between the people that are still in the game. Dennis, super excited about this. This is what he's been waiting for. He loves all the strategy and voting people out, getting their money, and he's all about the money. And obviously, Bo's name is floated around. And at that point, I would be interested in obviously, we know Bo has a target on his back because he's moving super slow. But who would you have picked, like, without knowing what comes after? Who would you have picked with, like, another target on their back, like a name being thrown around, basically? Because I was very confused, like, about that.
Can we go back to how when Manu, like, shows up, I guess Theon was, like, in his in his seat, and
Yeah.
he, like, comes and, like, puts his, like, hands on Theon's shoulders, like, "You're in my seat."
Yeah, I know. I
And
was like,
I'm like,
"Oh, the
how is he
first,
supposed to know? They're
human
just sitting
moment."
around the camp, like, they're just sitting around the fire, like, what anyways, that just, like, cracked me up.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true, that was funny.
but and then, like, coming back to, like, the whole, like, it's a steal the money, you're just voting somebody out and then their money gets, like, distributed, like, you're not, like when they said, like, you're stealing the money, I thought, like, it was, like, in the middle of the night, like, they were, like, gonna, like, steal the money.
Well, yeah. But I mean, if you start that, people are gonna get, like, pushed off the mountain, like, off a mountain cliff.
Yeah. And so but, like, back to what you were saying, like, Bo was, like, an obvious one. I'm surprised, like, since they brought up Bo's name because of him being in the back of the pack, they didn't bring up Amy. Because Amy
True.
like, if you're thinking about more of, like, "Oh, people in the back of the pack, we need to get the slower people out." Realistically, like, Amy was in the back of the pack, like, Dusty was carrying her bags, and we see in multiple scenes, like, her being pushed up the mountain, and so that's from what we've seen, so I would think that that name would come up, but and I'm surprised, like, Theron like, their none of their names got brought up either.
Yeah, Shweta's I don't know if she's only being mean on, like, confessionals, but, like, I feel like she's also mean around people, so I'm surprised her name hasn't been brought up.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But she has her little alliance. She has her little alliance, I guess, that makes her seem stronger, and you don't really wanna go against her. Because as you mentioned, Shweta and Dennis bring up Rose's name, and they pull in, uh Jenny and Jeff, and they seem on board. We, I again, we'll talk about the votes in a second, but um, Rose wants to vote for Jenny because she doesn't like her way of like motivating the group and her being like bossy about she's our MMA referee, and she's intense, let's say that. And obviously, not everybody's going to be on board with her way of like pushing people up the mountain. So Rose doesn't like that and wants to vote her out. We also get that weird scene where
I think that
Rose
put more
is
of
like in
a
the group.
I think that put more of a target on Rose's back, like, her putting out a name,
Yeah,
like, Jenny's name put more of a target on her back, like, I think at this point in the game, I wouldn't throw anybody's name out. I think this is, like, a point where you kinda have to, like, let other people throw out names and kinda just go with the flow kinda deal, so I
one hundred
think when she
percent.
threw out the name and nobody was grabbing the name and she was still kinda, like, pushing it,
Yeah,
and so
I,
I think
I I
that's
I totally
I
agree.
think
I
that's
think you
what
want to
really
stay
pushed people to vote
on the low
Rose.
low for sure. I think at this point you want to stay on the low low. Like for example, Nick, we haven't heard anything from him basically. Like obviously you don't know how it will turn out in the next episodes, but I think not putting a target on your back early on is great. and maybe like dropping like little seeds for like a good social relationship. Like I think that's a good thing. So I think Dusty has been doing a great job. But we also get this weird scene where Rose is standing there in a group with like all kinds of people, like half the group basically, and she asks Shweta and the group who they're voting for, and they're just like, "Oh, I think at the moment it's still like up for grabs or something, undecided." Like that's a telltale sign that you're gonna get voted out if somebody tells you this. Uh,
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because like there's nowhere to hide. Like you kind of can see like who's talking to
that
who.
is true. It's not like they're walking away having or we see some one-on-one conversations, but not a lot. And then let's come to the vote here. Like they end up sitting around the fireplace basically, and they're just like having a discussion about who they like and why they like Bo is slow. They're like, oh, who wants to vote for Bo? One person, who was that? Amy? Was it Amy? I'm not sure. Raises her hand. Weird moment. And then it's like, oh, who wants to vote for somebody else? And everybody raises their hand. Obviously, no shit, because they have to vote. And they didn't vote for Bo. So, and then Shweta, I think, is the one that says, "Oh, I want to vote for Rose." And then somebody else is like, "Oh, who else wants to vote for Rose?" And like nine people raise their hands, and they're just sitting there. And somebody's like, "Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do we have 9 people?" Such a weird format. Like, make them write the name down
I
or something and draw it.
Yeah, I do not like the vote, the style vote. Like I think it puts a target on you when if you have to in that scenario you have to be like, I want to vote Bo or I want to vote Rose and explain yourself. Like I'm fine with the discussion, but it's like maybe before that discussion, like I don't know how they would do it. Like maybe like people can just go and like nominate people, like drop like yeah, like write a name and like nominate people, and then it comes out and like there's somebody that reads it. I don't know. It doesn't have to be Manu. I guess he's not coordinating the votes, but like they read off who's like on it. So I guess like this one would have been like Bo, Rose, and Jenny. And then okay, fine, do the hand raising thing. But yeah, I think it's interesting because there's no hiding who you voted for either. Everybody knows what side of the vote you were on. So there's not even that strategic play of like trying to hide who you like if you attempted to like blindside somebody and then it didn't work, it's gonna show because
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, I think it's an interesting format. I wanna see it again and see maybe if it plays out, like, a little differently since, like, that was, like, the first one.
I just, I I guess like from like I agree with you, and I guess it adds in a way another layer because you have to like really think about how do we like let's say like let's say in this scenario you need 9 votes. Like I no, I guess there are 15 people, so you need 8 votes technically. 15 people left, you need 8 votes to vote somebody out. And I guess in this scenario, it doesn't really make sense. But how do you bring up somebody's name? Like, you need somebody to be like, "Oh no, I don't want to vote for this person." Who votes for? Like, put their arm up and be like, "Who votes for Rose in this scenario?" And obviously, that person is going to have like more of a target on her back or his back than the people that after that just raise their hand. You know what I mean? So I think that's a little
Yeah.
weird. Like, yeah, a little weird dynamic, but I guess it adds another layer. So with that, as mentioned before, we get 9 votes on Rose, and I thought it was a little like funny scene. We see her walking off like the fireplace, and I thought, oh, she's just leaving or whatever, and that's the last time we see her. But she walks to her backpack, takes out her money, and throws it like in the fireplace. Like obviously it's not on, but there's this little bowl thingy or whatever in the fireplace, and she throws the money in there, and we see them later on like distribute the money, like Rose's money between the rest of the people.
Yeah, it's like payday for them, like, they were, like, all, like, super excited.
I
Like,
know.
it's like
Crazy.
they were so excited, and they're, like, just like, "La, la, 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 like, here, you everybody take 2 bundles," and they, like, are passing it around. So I feel like that helps the morale, like, that's, like, a little bit of a morale boost, I guess. I don't think they were, like they weren't didn't seem that upset, like, with Rose leaving.
Yeah, we get the classic, like, fake hugs, and we get the Rose confessional where she's like, "I don't want your fake hugs," or whatever line. Um, but, I mean, I feel like it's always weird, like, these people voted you out. I always think it's weird when people vote you out and then they come up to you and you're like, "Oh, we really love you." Like, "Shut up, you just voted me out." Like, I wouldn't wanna hug them either. But yeah, in the end, this is where we finished the episode. We have 937,000 remaining between the 14 people that are left. We got some wild quotes from Dennis and Shweta again on the outro. And then we don't really get a like up next or like next time on the summit or whatever segment, but we get like a this season on the summit segment. And this basically includes, I feel like, every action sequence from the whole season. Like I feel like I watched a like 1 minute thing at the end, and I feel like I saw every single thing that's gonna happen. I don't know if you saw that. Did you stay around to watch
Yeah,
it?
I didn't like that because then I did. But I didn't like it because then I was like, you can see who made it to these certain
Yeah,
challenges, I
exactly.
guess you would say. Or yeah, and then you see the mountains keeper almost take somebody out multiple times.
You're
Yeah,
really on. Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't have watched that, but yeah, I agree. I think it was a little too much insight, but I think they're just really trying to grasp people's attention to watch the show. This is a new show.
That is true. I think it looked really cool. Like the challenges definitely look super cool. Like
Yeah.
climbing up ladders and stuff. Like it looks very challenging, and I'm wondering how some people get up there. We see Theron struggling on some of them, which is obviously like honestly fair because those seem super hard. Like those small ladders. Like is one particular scene I have in mind.
Yeah, but
But
we
yeah,
could do it. It'll be fine.
yeah, of course we gotta live up to our like what we said before. Put us on the show. Season 2, we're on it.
Please.
Uh, we would go out first episode just because we jinxed ourselves. But okay, do you have? I know we want to get into our picks, like winner picks, like top three, like pick a little roster who we think has a good chance of winning. Do you have any other thoughts before we get to that?
I think this was a good first episode. I was really hesitant to watch the show to begin with, but now I think I'm hooked. Like, I think I'm glad it's not just like, oh, they just have to make it to the summit. Like these little challenges and these little like decisions and like the strategic side of like having to vote people out at checkpoints really adds like dynamics and layers to the game, which I think are essential because if you just had 14 people climbing up a mountain, I don't think it would be an amazing show. Beautiful, yes, but I don't like attention wise, I don't think I'd be able to watch it. But yeah, I guess so like my top 3 picks would be I guess I'll say her name right. I'm going to call her Becky because I don't want to butcher her name anymore.
Yeah, good point.
Nick and Jeff. I know I picked 3 athletic people, but I also tried to pick
Yeah,
people that I thought would be very like strategic, and I think like Jeff is very like he's low key like from this first episode really doesn't he wasn't involved in any of the bickering that was going on. Like Nick seems like he has like a level head too, and then like and Becky, I just gravitated towards her.
I I have such a hard time. I was thinking about Nick too because he got such a like low key edit. Like you know what I mean? Like you always have to pick somebody that's like not really shown in the first episode because some of these people make it far. But I am picking Dusty for sure. I think he's very like he plays a good social game and he's very strong physically. I think people are going to perceive him as a threat pretty soon, so I'm kind of scared of that. But I also think the challenges are going to be really hard at the end, and I don't see Amy or some other people make it up, like Bo, make it up to the summit. To be honest, um, I'm picking. I didn't prepare this, but I don't want to pick the same people as you. So I am picking Theron. I'm picking him. I'm picking him. I think he gets a
Okay.
villain edit, but I'm just
Bold.
picking one villain on my team. I have to pick one. Yeah. I'm picking him, and I am picking. I want to. No, you know what? I'm throwing out Darren. I'm kicking him off the team again. uh, I'm kicking him off my team, and I'm picking Jeff. And Jeff, as mentioned before, I think he's very empathetic, and he plays a great social game as well as being very fit. And I'm picking. Oh, Theron is back on. I'm picking Theron. Becky can stay off my team. I don't want her.
Okay.
Nope. Theron is on my
Yeah, we
team.
can't have the same team.
Okay. With I mean, we don't, right? No, we don't.
Yeah, we
Only
just have
Jeff.
Jeff.
We both have Jeff. Yeah, so we're fine. Yeah. All right. With that being said, there's only one last thing to do, and that is a little segment I would like to call the Jeff scale. What do I mean with that? Okay, I didn't think about a name before. I just want to ask you one question basically. And this is regarding Manu as our host. I want you to rate Manu's performance as a host just from the first episode on a scale that I call the Jeff scale, coming from Jeff Probst, the Survivor host. On a scale of this is how you do it on Survivor, which is obviously the best, to absolute disaster, which is obviously the bottom. Where do you rate him on a scale? You could also go 1 to 10. Let's make 10 the top and 1
You
bottom.
know,
Where do you rate him?
we only saw so much of him. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, the benefit of the mountain keeper. He maybe he'll grow. Maybe as they get to higher elevation, though. I don't know. He's not Jeff Probst, but maybe one day he'll be there.
Yeah. To be honest, for me, like I guess we both watched the episode twice, but I watched it the first time, and I would have given him like a 2 out of 10, for example, on the first time because I thought the voiceovers were very cool, but then it was a little weird, like the where he was actually talking like there to the camera and stuff. I was like, I don't know. And then I rewatched it, and I thought he really grew on me. I'm not gonna lie, he really grew on me. I'm giving him like a 6.5 out of 10 for now, and I think we have potential to get up there. I think I just had to get used to it.
Yeah, I think it'll take some time for me.
All right. With that being said, this was our first episode of TheClimb, the official. No, we're not the official, but the recap podcast for the summit. And yeah, leave your comments, etc., ratings, everything you want to leave on this podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode, recapping episode 2. Thanks for listening, and with
Everybody
that,
get outside. And in the meantime, I will be applying for season 2.
yeah, we're definitely applying for season 2, and yeah, we'll see you the next time. Later.
Bye.